I will call the August 20th Blackhawk County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Paul.
Here.
Leyland. Here. Little.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Rocca.
Here. We will now have a moment of silence to reflect on our actions. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will entertain a motion to receive the agenda as proposed or amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. We will now have public comments. Is there anybody in the boardroom that would like to provide public comment? Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to provide public comment? All right, item number 3, we have 2 presentations. One is by the Urban Counties Coalition with Larry Murphy and Gary Grant, and the other will be by Sustainable Iowa Land Trust by Lori Scoville. We'll start with the Urban Counties Coalition. Gentlemen.
Good morning. My name is Gary Grant. I am one of the lobbyists for the Urban County Coalition, and I want to thank you very much for having us today. Thank you for inviting us. We do hold during the session weekly conference calls with the Urban County Coalition to kind of share some of the updates. What I'd like to do today is I'd like to briefly kind of go over some of the major issues that we dealt with this year, and then answer any questions that you may have. And if you have any questions about kind of the future, we're happy to tell you what we're hearing now, although keep in mind that we have an election between now and next session, so everything that we hear now is subject to change. I think one of the largest bills we dealt with this session was a mental health restructure. This is kind of the latest incarnation of the state's sort of I don't want to say takeover, but for lack of a better word, I'm going to use that word, takeover of the mental health system in Iowa. Instead of mental health regions, now we're going to have mental health districts. Those maps are out. I do think, if I remember correctly, Blackhawk County, you're kind of roughly in the same region that or district that your region was in, so it doesn't sound like there's going to be a great deal of change with that. There are some other changes, kind of in the boundaries of this. What this is designed to do, according to the Department of Health and Human Services, is to try and equalize services across Iowa. I don't know that there's still this bill was kind of a broad, for lack of a better kind of phrase, a broad outlining of a vision, and there are several questions that still have to be answered by rulemaking. One of which is the maps. I think, like I said, I think those are out. I think those will be approved kind of as they are. So, and we can certainly send those to you if you haven't seen them. Those just recently came out within, I think, the last like couple of weeks. So I know that the other thing is the other major change is these districts are now going to be managed by administrative service organizations. That's one of the things that's not well defined in the bill, what an administrative service organization is, other than one of the things, one of the things that we did influence as an Urban County Coalition is in the original bill, it was kind of wide open. For-profit and not-for-profit could both apply to be administrative service organizations. One of the things we were able to have some impact on is that now only not-for-profit organizations are eligible to sort of be administrative service organizations, but the makeup of those, whether they're actual 501c3s or 28E organizations, kind of like they are now, is still, I think, very open, and I don't think DHS will define that terribly Well, over the next several weeks, I know that they kind of want to see, they being Department of Health and Human Services seems to be interested in seeing kind of the proposals out there. So I think, you know, the leading candidates right now for the structure of these organizations is both a 501c3 and a 28E organization. So those, I think, are due, the applications for those, I think, are due by the end of the year for what an administrative service organization is, what it will look like. And I think there are boards across these districts now that are discussing it. So one of the other bright spots of this bill, something we've been working on for a few years now, is the treatment for co-occurring disorders, both mental health and substance use disorders. A lot of times, as I'm sure you all know from your involvement with mental health over the years, you know that folks who suffer from mental health difficulties often also suffer with substance use disorders, and the treating those two often co-occurring disorders was difficult under kind of previous regulations because there were different funding streams and they weren't allowed to be mingled. Now that Department of Health and Human Services merged with Department of Public Health, those funding streams flow through the same agencies, and you can treat co-occurring disorders under these. So that was also one of the real bright spots. I think that's going to help a lot of Iowans. As far as there was also a major area education restructuring. We mentioned this not because it specifically has to do with county government, but because it does tangentially have to do with kind of the delivery of mental health services. And we're still, I don't think, clear on mental health services in Iowa. I think have been getting better over the past decade, but I still think they have a ways to go, because especially in the areas of children's mental health services. One of the other things the mental health restructuring bill did was mandate sort of the creation, as unbelievable as this sounds, it mandated the creation of a system for children's mental health service delivery, which hasn't existed in Iowa. There are a variety of services available to children. They're available through a variety of different agencies, ABAs, school districts, the judicial districts, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Public Health. So one of the goals of this, the other goals of this legislation is to actually implement sort of a system of service delivery where it will be easier to access and easier to know where to go if you need to access them. The last thing I want to cover really quick is another bill we've been working on for a couple of legislative sessions, and we almost got it across the finish line last year, but this year we did. It was the county treasurer bill, House File 681. It increased some fees and allowed more retention at the county level for some of those fees. So we were really happy to kind of help get that across the finish line, because we do. When the legislature, you know, talks about reducing property taxes, one of the messages that we carry to them is, you know, we don't believe that there is any group of elected officials that are more sensitive to property tax levels than county supervisors. And the reason for that is not because we represent them, it's because when that bill goes out, it has your names on it. So I'm quite certain that the school districts and the cities, you know, as much as they might be sensitive in their own way, you know, they're not getting the calls saying, hey, you know, what the hell happened to my property taxes? You folks are, because your names, your office contacts are on the top of that letterhead. So we're happy to talk about property taxes and ways to alleviate that burden on the property taxpayer. But one of the things we want, or a couple of things we want the legislature to be mindful of is, first of all, you know, services. There are certain services that your constituents expect. And And those services don't get cheaper every year, just like the legislature faces increased costs for goods and services. You folks face that. But we don't want to be the only people involved in that discussion. You know, we're not the only taxing jurisdiction kind of on that piece of paper that just got mailed out the last couple of weeks ago. We also want to have a discussion about things that, like in House File 681, services that you provide that aren't fully you aren't fully able to bill for those services. So one of the classic examples we like to use are marriage licenses in Iowa. So marriage license in Iowa is $35. And you know, you go down to the recorder's office, they have to make sure that it's filled out right, and they have to spend a little bit of time with people to make sure that gets done. They have to record it, they have to store it, all of which costs money. And we get to keep $5 and we send $30 to the state's general fund. So we try to impress upon the legislature that, look, folks, you know, we're not looking to turn anything into a profit center, but realize that everything we provide that's not covered by the fee that you allow us to charge is paid for by property taxes. So that's one of the messages that we carry. Having said that, I'm hearing more and more about property taxes kind of being an issue in the future. You know, in the upcoming legislature. So one of the things we've been talking to the folks in the Urban County Coalition about is sort of and we'll talk about this at our upcoming face-to-face a little bit, is the disconnect between what we see as a disconnect between like state legislative candidates and candidates for local offices. Because if I knock on your door and I say, you know, I'm Gary Grant, I'm running for state legislature, you know, do you think your property taxes are too high? Or, you know, what do you see as the biggest issue? Well, in the last couple of weeks, I just got my property tax bill, so I'm going to tell you my property taxes are too high. So if I knock on your door and I say, hi, I'm Gary Grant, I'm running for county supervisor, you know, what are your issues? And what do you think the biggest issues are? Well, I'm going to tell you my road sucks, and I'm going to tell you that I want a better park. I'm going to tell you I think you should mow the park more often, or there should be more grills, or there should be more bike trails, or there should be more this and more that. And all the issues that you hear every day. So what voters are sending are two different messages. They want more better stuff, and they don't want to pay and they don't want to pay, they want to pay lower property taxes. Okay. We'd all like that, but unfortunately, you know, we're asking sort of Urban County Coalition folks that, you know, when you go out and encounter this stuff, it's very helpful to kind of take maybe a few minutes to talk to people about where this revenue comes from. And maybe we ought to, you know, be talking to our state legislators about different ways to find that, you know, building permits, you know, well inspection permits, the restaurant inspections, the tobacco permits, all of the permits that you folks issue, and all of the services that you provide, you know, driver's licenses and license plates and all of the things like that, you know, we're sending the lion's share of this money into the state, into the general fund, which is allowing them to reduce income taxes, one of their major sources of income. But we still have to pay for providing those services out of property taxes, our major source of income. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there and we'll continue to carry that to the legislature. We encourage you folks, as you encounter legislators, you know, at events kind of throughout the year, to remind them, look, we're happy to have this discussion, but it has to be more, number one, it has to be more than about just local governments. And number two, we need to figure out a way that we'd like your help in figuring out a way to make us less reliant on, you know, any source of income. And if you have to use the business argument for this, you know, no business can be completely healthy when, you know, it relies for the majority of its income on essentially one client. So we'd like to diversify that a little bit. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover, just very briefly. I'm happy to answer questions on anything else that I didn't cover, anything that I did cover, or if I can, you know, answer some questions about what we might be seeing in the upcoming legislative session, I'm happy to do that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Or I was gonna say, Larry,
Yeah.
you have a comment or something?
No,
too?
and actually, Gary, if you want to cover, I think the other two that directly impact you that were urban county priorities is the compensation board, which now comes back to you.
Mhm.
And if you want to expand on that, and then also there's the sheriff's retirement bill, which really doesn't impact you directly, but it does change some of the financing for sheriffs in terms of the retirement. And it was because they had excess IPers within the protected class, which they're a part of. So, but if you want to talk about compensation.
Yeah, the compensation bill didn't, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, didn't come out exactly as we wanted. One of the things that we have been trying for years is to make compensation boards sort of optional for counties. If you wanted to use them, you could, and if you didn't want to use them, you didn't have to. The legislature actually passed that bill for us this year, and when I say it didn't come out exactly as we would have liked, if you choose not to use the compensation board, there are some very prescriptive measures on what you must consider and how you must act that we would have preferred not to be in there. What we understand is there are other sort of elected officials at the county level that weren't big fans of eliminating compensation boards because there isn't always the best relationship in some areas, and we certainly understand that. What we didn't want to do is kind of create a mechanism where supervisors could punish, let's say the auditor, for, doing or not doing something that they wanted them to do or didn't want them to do. But like I said, in my opinion, and I think it's a step in the right direction, don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, I think should you choose not to use it, there are some of the measures are so prescriptive that I don't know that we're really gaining anything by not using compensation boards. So, and the logic of not using compensation boards as I'm sure you know, from a county supervisor perspective is you folks are kind of ultimately responsible for the budget. So because you are ultimately responsible for the budget, we try to reduce areas in state law where you don't have a choice about what you do or what you don't do. Because as we remind some of our state legislators from time to time, you folks are elected officials as well. You have constituents that you answer to, and that should they not like a decision that you make, your constituents are free to make a different decision at the ballot box, just as they are with them. So given that, we don't think it's kind of the right thing to do to make county supervisors take votes on things over which they have very little or no control.
Well, a few weeks ago, we did take action on that, at least to try going without our compensation board, knowing that we could change that, next year or something too, if we find we want to change course on it. But that we decided as a group, I think it was unanimous, that we all go without a compensation board for next year. So we shall see.
Yes, be interested to see how that works.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We're happy to.
No, I guess from what we've had, like say, kind of covered in some of the things we did this year, do you see some, all, any that you see will just transition over to next year or this next year? And the strong ones that will be kind of strongly.
I think we're hearing property taxes because it's an election year. And that seems to be kind of a common theme. If I'm door knocking during election year and I say, and I come to your door and I say, Linda, you think your property taxes are too high, you're probably going to say yes. So when the legislature gets together, they're going to say, how did every single door in Iowa, we heard people think their property taxes are too high. Well, of course I mean, that's it. And the challenge, I will tell you, the challenging thing about these kinds of bills, and are that if they come to the floor and we haven't been able to have significant kind of impact on them, they'll pass in an overwhelmingly bipartisan fashion. Because what you don't want to do as a legislator is to come back to your district being the one who voted against lowering somebody's property taxes. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. You just don't want to be that person. So we're seeing that. The bill they passed last year was designed to control growth of local budgets. But what I think we're hearing now is that legislators are a little frustrated that they were counting on reductions in property taxes. So I guess I understand their frustration. One of the things that we're going to talk about again this year is that we represent large municipal clients. Larry and I do. City of Cedar Rapids, Urban County Coalition, and as much as we don't like some of the limits, because we think there already are limits, on property taxes. They're called elections. Folks don't like what you're spending, they can certainly make different choices. But we're not, what we're trying to sort of convey to them is, even though we represent large counties, we have small towns in these counties. So like Blackhawk County, by and large, is growing. Some of your small towns aren't. So if you are out, in some of your areas and you're talking to some of these small towns, as we hear the common refrain often in Iowa or in the Iowa legislature, that they want to sort of boost rural Iowa, which is a laudable goal. But our clients, being sort of the largest counties in Iowa, as much as we may not like some of the limitations, it's likely we will grow out of them, because we are the areas in Iowa that are growing. So yes, they're going to pinch. They'll pinch for a few years, but we will grow, and we'll grow out of it. What won't happen is some of the small towns and some of the smaller counties, and we're already seeing this, that are not just, their growth, they're not capturing any growth because their growth is non-existent. So to be able to sort of grow their revenue, because gravel doesn't get any less expensive every year. All of the services that you provide don't get less expensive every year, and that's true across Iowa, no matter where you live. So we're trying to sort of convince them that, we need to have a bigger discussion about property taxes and whether or not you just want to force them down, because while our clients are going to pinch where they're from, some of these small towns, it's going to be disastrous.
I don't know that we are actually growing here. I think we're pretty close to flat. And where we have seen some growth has been maybe not on the residential side, but on the commercial side, which is typically within municipalities located in the TIF. What's your feel for TIF reforms in this next session?
I don't know that I don't know that the legislature knows what they want to do about TIFs. One of the things that I think that they'd like to see is taxing jurisdictions communicating more often about, things like TIFs and TIF revenue, payment in lieu of taxes, those arrangements. So I know that they tried to reform TIF. I know cities hold on to it fairly tightly, simply because it is almost the last available tool that local governments have to encourage any type of growth. So I think, given that, I think it's going to be very challenging, especially since when you consider that, most of the TIF, when it's issued, it also involves some sort of debt. So how do you reform or change TIF without changing existing sort of debt relationships? And I think that's kind of where the sticking point has been.
So you don't see that really kind of a prominent.
I wouldn't be surprised if they took another run at it, especially if they're talking about property taxes. But it's going to be awfully hard to come to an agreement on that, especially considering that all the debt that's associated with TIF.
Chris, Tom, questions thus far?
I'm sorry, no questions so far, but I appreciate the efforts, especially on kind of the short-sightedness around property tax reform and what it actually means when implemented.
Yeah, it's hard to see that as a partnership, I guess, yet. We haven't had some of those kind of, when you say communication, there isn't really any two-way communication on that. It's just some of the services that they mandate that we do, and we have to use property taxes to pay for it.
And I think that's one of the, requests we always have every year, as you come across what we call the unfunded mandates, where the state requires you to do certain things, does not compensate you for that. And yet they say, well, you're raising property taxes too much. So we really try to itemize that whole unfunded mandate issue. I think the other piece that Gary and I run into is that, he was talking about, basically during the campaign season in August, where everybody's outdoor now. And that's when the initial property tax notification comes out. Unfortunately, that just, by law, they're supposed to show the market value. And so you see the increase on commercial ag and commercial and residential. What's not on that form, and we talked with legislators the last 2 years about this, is that if they would put an estimate of what the actual market value is, but by law, there's the equalization and there's rollbacks, there's tax, various credits for various groups. In essence, residential property comes in at about 50% of whatever that number is on the notice they get in August. The ag is in that 35 to 40% of what they actually see. The folks that actually get hit are the ones at the commercial industrial, because they're paying 90% of the cost. But the reality is, going door to door, the folks in homes see that huge number in terms of the market value. They don't realize that the actual taxable value is about half that value. What Gary was talking about, I think part of the challenge for us, and it's what we hope you all can help us with, is the continual education of legislators. Last session, there was 43 brand new legislators, most of whom were not local government officials, most of whom don't know much more about their property tax than the average person. And so when they start worrying about, we got to do something about property tax, you've got folks that are not really skilled at understanding how it's done, then trying to put all the stuff together. So, and that's where when Gary talks about TIF, that's the challenge. It's very complex. And, as Gary alluded to, I think at some point, the General Assembly is going to have giving local government in Iowa, what they do in many other states, various other kinds of revenue, so that you can actually offset property tax with those other types of revenues. So,
yeah, we're just encouraging the legislature, if they're going to have, and we're doing this now with candidates, if they're going to have another property tax discussion, we're happy to participate. We think it needs to be a holistic discussion of all taxing entities, because if you look at, and we're not encouraging, before anybody gets kind of in a twist about this, I always kind of preface this, we're not encouraging them to cut anybody else, but we don't think you can have a discussion about property taxes without talking about all the taxing jurisdictions, and that includes schools. Because frankly, depending on where you live, anywhere from 50 to 60% of your property tax bill is your school district. So we think that if you're talking about local governments, you're talking about generally the smallest piece of the pie, kind of nibbling around the edges. Local governments just happen to be sort of popular to kind of pick on. And it gets a little bit more politically dicey when you start talking about school funding. But we think that, if they're going to take a real look at property taxes, you have to look at all of the tax jurisdictions and not just local governments.
Oh, and I think, that's an argument we have all the time that's even difficult as far as informing the public, because I said the county's portion is just a small portion, a smaller portion of our county's bill. And they don't look at the schools many times, or the cities, and see what the percentages are and what our role is. You have to explain that.
Yeah, I think the last number I remember is somewhere, counties generally account for somewhere between 18 and like 22 or 23% of your property tax bill.
Yeah.
So
this is Tom. Yeah, my bill accounted for about 78% was city and school tax. Waterloo, Cedar Falls, I bet you that number's over 80%. once I break that down for the people, and I got a lot of phone calls here in the last weeks because obviously we got our bills. Once you explain that to them, they really don't fully understand that until you do explain it. And it's kind of amazing that about 80% of your taxes are your city and school, and the county just plays a small part of it. And it's the people you just have to kind of explain it to them the way it works. But TIF, we're losing a lot of tax dollars with TIF. It's just amazing how much tax dollars the county would receive if there wasn't some of that TIF wasn't as large.
Yeah. I know as an economic developer in my previous life, I said, you know, that you loved the TIF because it was the incentive and it did help you build roads and bridges and give, you know, incentives to businesses. But as a county supervisor, then I said the hat had to shift a little bit to the percentage sometimes that we have to look at. And you know, selfishly, I suppose if that we needed some of those funds at some point in time, we'd love to have the opportunity to talk about it or discuss it, and we don't.
I think, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person today. I've got a nasty cold that you don't want. But I think that we've been losing this argument with the state on property taxes the whole time I've been up here, and even since before. Of course, we had the backfill. I think that was maybe about 4 years before I was on the board or so that was implemented. But I think that maybe local governments should be considering, a full-throated support behind other revenue streams for the state. And I'm particularly thinking we're losing out big time with all the bordering states with legal marijuana. That's a lot of revenue that's going in that could be utilized in different ways, local governments, because we're just losing this argument. We have been every legislative session.
I know. Go ahead, Linda.
Sorry.
I know a few years ago when I talked to the assessor, Blackhawk County, with this commercial tax credit that the state passed and did the backfill, which is going to be over in a couple of years. Blackhawk County was one of the lowest growth in commercial compared to a lot of other counties. It did work in other counties, but at that time, and I'm not sure where we're at now, Blackhawk County is one of the lowest growth as far as commercials. So it didn't do what it was supposed to in Blackhawk County.
We're a little slower than I said we'd like to see us be, that's for sure.
Yeah, and as far as, I'll just say one last thing about TIFs. There are mechanisms in Iowa law, specifically kind of payment in lieu of taxes, or pilots, that I think, are better mechanisms, are better solutions, forcing parties to come to the table to kind of settle those, disputes rather than kind of the elimination, or significant changes to TIF. I mean, so it's sort of a catch-22. You want local governments, cities and counties to be able to, counties use it less often, to be able to encourage economic development, but you don't want to significantly impact the budgets by, kind of overusing some of these things as we see in Iowa sometimes. And there are some legitimate reasons for, concern about it in some areas, not in all areas. And, 99%, I think, they're used responsibly. There may be a small community here and there that maybe not use it to its best effect, but that's kind of the tightrope we walk a little bit. But yeah, we do, payment in lieu of taxes are an issue that's on the county coalition priority, simply because we think that, if you're going to do kind of these TIFs, then maybe there ought to be some other taxing jurisdictions at the table.
And you mentioned the face-to-face meeting. I know it's in September, but I said I just would like to encourage, I guess, all board members too, while I'm the kind of the representative for this board, but any questions, comments, or shared subjects that you'd like to see discussed at that with those groups, to contact Larry and Gary or myself or whatever. So
please let us know if you have, either bring the issue to Linda or, contact Larry and I, directly, and we're happy to sort of bring it to the group for consideration. So we're looking forward to the next legislative session and the election, and I'm sure you all are looking forward for it to be over, so.
I'm looking forward to the legislative session being over. It hasn't even started.
The break isn't long enough. Yeah.
All right.
No.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your
Thank you
time.
very
We appreciate it. And as always, if there are any questions or comments, please, even though Linda might be the representative, we encourage all of you, you have our contact information, reach out to us directly. We're happy to answer any questions. Or talk about any specific bills that may be of concern.
All right.
So
thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for working for us.
All right, next we have Lori Scoble, Iowa Land Trust. Yeah.
So much nicer than trying to connect my own computer and dealing with tech issues as they arise. Good job, Larry and Gary, and good luck during election season this year. I know that has to be eventful. I am not Lori Scoble. I am Brianna Horsey. Lori is out sick today. I think it's common across Iowa right now. Our old friend COVID is coming back to take us out one by one, but I'm the director of the Sustainable Iowa Land Trust, and I am here today to inform you and then ask for your support in our launch here in Waterloo and within the county. First of all, I want to thank you for inviting us to present today. Those of you who are joining virtually and here in person, you've made this process seamless, and we felt very welcome and are really excited for a partnership. I'd like to recognize members in attendance today. Les Beck, our board president, is in attendance to support, and Cam Yar, you guys all know him, I am sure, from you and I, is also here to support SILT and has provided a letter of support, which I've provided to you at your table. You also have an example of a resolution of support draft that Lori has created that we're going to ask for you to work with us to develop something similar to this following our presentation. And lastly, you have a handout that covers SILT's mission, what our vision is, and how we're protecting land and making it accessible. So with that, I will move on to who SILT is and what we do. We are a 501c3 nonprofit accredited land trust in Iowa. So we cover the whole state, and we are protecting land to grow food, to put it simply. What we do is way more complex, but to really break it down to a basic level of to understand is we're protecting farmland from development and improving access to that farmland. So we're working with landowners on their farms to protect food, to protect land for growing food in Iowa. Why are we doing this? We are doing this because land is inaccessible to food farmers that are growing sustainable food crops in Iowa, and we're losing farmland at a rapid rate. So we're feeling an urgency to protect land in Iowa. We also would like to address that we live here on some of the most fertile soil in the world, but we're importing so much of our food, and we have plenty of space. Food farmers need relatively small acreages in order to support their communities. So we believe that it is possible to work alongside landowners and within our urban areas to grow food enough to support our communities. So what is a land trust? We have, we are protecting land with what we're using in easements, and we also have two other ways of protecting land. Our easement ensures that that land is protected in perpetuity, And so we work with landowners to develop an easement that is connected to the deed of the property ultimately, and then we would monitor that throughout time. The other two ways we're protecting land are through reserve life estates and through direct land donations. So land that we take ownership of, we will provide direct access to farmers seeking land to grow food through a low-cost lease that can be it's a 20-year lease and can be renewed through time. So the easement is a legal document that's attached to the deed and will restrict the use of that property to growing food in a sustainable way. So farmers that farm on silt land either have to be pursuing one of 5 certifications that will restrict the use of that property. So that's certified organic, certified naturally grown, animal welfare approved, certified biodynamic, or have some sort of sustainability plan to ensure that the soil is not being degraded, the water is being cared for, and it's not doing additional damage to the environment. So we believe that landowners can, and our model is set up to provide a benefit for landowners that take out an easement on their property. So they will qualify for 100% deduction of their adjusted gross income at the federal level, or up to 20-year, $100,000 in state tax credits.
Now, are you saying that's the goal, or that's something they would obtain now? They could do that now.
Yeah, so I mean, I can't promise that they will qualify for those deductions. They'd have to work directly with their tax professional for that, but this is what's available to landowners currently. So what is sustainable agriculture? I covered 5 certifications that the landowner could participate in to pursue a sustainable practice. We're looking for a sustainability plan that builds soil health, improves water and air quality, and promotes energy efficiency. The low cost of land for beginning farmers will provide security for farmers in the future and access to land. Our easement lowers the value of land by 40%, in some cases more. So for us, that ensures that for future generations, this land is going to be accessible for food farmers because it won't be overpriced and it will be affordable for them. This is Carly and Ethan. They are 2 of our new farmers up on our farm in Decorah. This farm was donated by Lyle and Sue Louisum, and they wanted to protect the farm from development and also to preserve their legacy of the family farm. Creating access to land for beginning farmers comes with other benefits. So in addition to improving the water quality and the soil health on that farm, it's also providing local food production. It's addressing climate change and food miles, how far our food is coming. It ensures the future of the family farm. It contributes to the health of rural communities. It's providing food security and just natural areas that are going to protect our wildlife, game, etc. So we currently have 16 farms over 1,200 acres across Iowa, and we are just getting started. We are continuing our outreach and our action in Iowa with our Circle Our Cities campaign. And so we have a goal of circling 10 cities with 10 food farms in Iowa. And Waterloo is one of our target cities, Waterloo and the surrounding area. We have just received a grant, which is why I'm here today and why we've launched in Sioux City. So through the Inflation Reduction Act, we applied for the Increasing Land Access Grant, and we were awarded $1.8 million to circle Waterloo, Cedar Rapids, and Des Moines. And so with that, we've partnered with an organization In each community here in Waterloo, we've partnered with We Arose. So we're working closely with them. They'll hire or be able to staff a full-time farm business navigator. Those partner organizations in each city are going to work on the farmer side. So they'll be working directly with the farmers to help them apply for the resources that they need to be successful. So think like loans, business plans, etc. On our side, we've hired a full-time regional coordinator to work on the landowner side. So we're going to be working on land access, getting those easements, getting land donations, working with landowners, and trying to find, strategic regions around and within the county to protect land. So we'll provide access to land. They're going to work with the farmers, and together we hope to get those farmers onto land. Farmers that are already growing food, looking to grow their business, have a proven model of success, otherwise wouldn't have access to land. So we're really looking to work with, this grant specifies that within the cities we're working in, we'll prioritize BIPOC, the Latino populations, immigrant farmers, refugee farmers, and other underrepresented individuals. Like I said, that weren't born into having access to land, or they don't have other resources to obtain it. So how does SILT fit into Black Hawk County goals? So our overall mission supports over, our goals and overall mission support over half of the motivating values that are identified in the county's 2028 vision focus. So we've pulled out your desire to build desirable communities, promote economic vitality, achieve environmental sustainability, apply technology to serve, work together, and transform how we lead. So we're asking for a resolution of support from the Board of Supervisors to help SILT connect with the community to strengthen local food systems. The resolution of support that I provided you, we're simply asking for the Board of Supervisors to enthusiastically endorse our initiative to surround Waterloo and the county with farms that will feed the people. We are asking you to challenge area businesses to collaborate with producers and strengthen markets for locally grown food crops within the county, and to encourage local landowners to consider adopting conservation easements where appropriate. And so with this partnership, and what I'm asking from the Board of Supervisors is to explore this with us. What does it mean to support our initiative? Maybe it's going to mean when a proposal comes across your desk that is going to incentivize landowners to take out a conservation easement or donate land. Maybe it's a tax abatement. We want to have those conversations and explore this together, and really use this as an opportunity for us to share our message on a wider scale. And so we're hoping to do a press release announcing your support of the Circle Our Cities initiative to show that the county supports food farmers and is addressing land access and is supporting locally grown food in the county. And we'll share the presentation with you, but I'll also send some follow-up information. I'd like to answer your questions now, what questions you have for us, and how we could make this partnership work together. I will mention we already have reached out to the city. We'll be working with the city to identify some sites that might be ideal for food farming, more in an urban setting. We're working with you and I. We're working with you, We Arose, and we're going to spend a good amount of time over this next year just developing those partnerships within the community as well. Any questions?
Any response from the community yet? Have you had any discussion or conversations with the farmers?
So we just hosted an event a couple of weeks ago, and we had a couple of landowners from Waterloo actually come up to Decorah to see one of our farms there, because we don't have a farm in Black Hawk County yet. And so we have, there is a great deal of interest in the tax incentive for landowners. And so we'll be sharing that. We're going to do some targeted marketing in the area specific to landowners and how they can access those tax benefits and what's available to them. But where we're seeing the most interest is from the farmer side and farmers seeking land access. There's a pretty long list. We have a farm seeker survey, so we keep track of all of the applicants that come through. And so just in Black Hawk County, we have over 30 farmers seeking land right now.
How do you sort of prioritize those 30?
We have a committee that selects the farmers based on a rating system of criteria. And so we are looking at their business plan. We're looking at their experience. We're looking at the opportunity that they either have or don't have to obtain farmland elsewhere. So we have a rating system. It goes before our committee, and then then they're selected based off of that.
How much land are you looking at? How many acres ideally in Black Hawk are you?
Ideally in Black Hawk County, we'd be looking for 10 farms, about 40 acres each, so about 400 acres. But food farmers are farming on relatively small pieces of land, and so that number is pretty flexible. We have farms from 20 acres to 140 acres under silt ownership currently, and so if it's 10 or 20 acre farms, but we'd really like to see the county, for lack of a better term, surrounded with food farms. So strategically placed where they have access to market or close enough to sell their food, and also be protected in a way that they're not, that the soil is healthy. And so we've got to look at soil test, location, all of that.
So geography is important, or kind of a component of this too, to have it the surrounding factor that you're talking about too, and not just having them located in one part of the county.
Yeah, and because of rural Iowa and access to local food, someone on the other side of the county, it can take a very long time to get to local food based on where you're at.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions from the board?
No questions, but I just think this is exciting stuff. Over the years, I've even myself looked at getting into food farming, and just don't have the resources to get land. It's very hard in Iowa. With the prices of commodities have driven up the price of the land too. And so this is exciting stuff. It's good for economic development and good for our health. So I hope we can put the resolution on maybe next week.
Yeah, and food farming is not an easy task. It's very labor intensive. There are not the subsidies for food farmers. So it's hard work, and anything that we can do to incentivize that, to build our regional food webs so that it is possible for them to market local goods in your county. Those baby steps towards making it viable for food farmers is going to be really important as we explore this together as well. But all of the communities that we do have farms in already have been very well received. People are interested and they care about their neighbors and what kind of farming they're doing, and they want to support local. And so, we're in this for the long run. We're always thinking 100 years from now, where are we going to grow our food? As urban sprawl happens in Iowa, as more farms are being bought out or developed, we want to think about future generations and where that food's going to be grown. I think one thing we all learned during the pandemic is that our food supply can go away rather quickly. And then we're looking at, our local community to support us. And so the land that we protect is in perpetuity, you know, for as long as the law will allow us. We know that there will be food farms in Black Hawk County, and that food will be available to farmers that would like to grow food.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. First of all, I agree. This is always has been a good program, and Camiar has been involved in it for years. I think it's a good presentation that should be given to our county planning and zoning, due to the fact, and I don't know if anything has anything to do with it, but they deal with the county's ordinances and so forth on uses of land. So I think this would be a beneficial presentation. It should go to our county planning and zoning, especially when we have farmers who serve on that board. And like Chris said, obviously we can't vote on it today. It'd have to be on next week. Otherwise, I think it's a great program on a small scale within the county, not 20 acres, but the county has a heck of a lot of FEMA land that I think could be used for gardens and stuff over the years too. So I think it's a good program, and it's going to take some time and hopefully put something together. But
well, thank you, Supervisor Little. We definitely, that's what we're looking for in this resolution, is to be involved in the conversations, to develop a relationship with you where you say, you know, I feel like you should present this idea and your mission to this group, or this is a pathway that might be beneficial. There isn't another land trust doing this in Iowa. And so if we can use Black Hawk County as our, you know, our launch, as the example for the rest of Iowa, and what we're doing here, then we can share with other counties and, you know, address this on a state level. But we'd like to start with Black Hawk County. I feel like we already have the partnership with Chris's involvement in addressing food systems in Iowa, and that we really could get some great media out of this. It's an opportunity for us to develop other partners within the county, and I just appreciate your support. Thank you for having us on today. We will get a final draft resolution for vote. And if you have any feedback on what we have proposed, we're happy to get that, you know, to make any changes or amendments that are necessary.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, item number 4, claims and payments. This is a resolution that the Board of Supervisors approve expenditures and that the county auditor be authorized and directed to issue payments against the various settlement of such claims as allowed.
So move.
All right, Michelle. Good morning, board. Our bill payment today is a total of $679,495.91. And from the Sheriff 6040 Fund, it is $8,137.74. And not a lot of large items today. We are purchasing one single axle dump truck with snow equipment from Don's Truck Sales for $107,929. And also some repairs for $63,918 from Bargain Inc. And so we also are making a payment on the fire alarm panel installation here in the courthouse to Hawkeye Alarm and Signal, $25,735. Oh, no large things.
Any comments or
to be in order? Sorry.
Comments or questions? Roll call vote, please, Karen.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Rocco.
Yes. Item number 5, receive project updates from department heads or elected officials. Kathy.
Good morning, board. Kathy Nicholas, engineer. Last week, we received some good news from the Iowa Living Roadway Trust Foundation in part of the DOT. We submitted a grant for $30,000 for a hydro seeder. We were successful in getting that amount of money to be able to purchase a new hydro seeder. We also received $4,500 for a spray logging system that can help Griffin keep track of where he has applied herbicides. That would be very useful to put that into our GIS system. So we will be coming to you. We have budgeted for both of those items in our FY25 budget. So we'll be coming to you very shortly now that we receive those grants. We will look for some 2 of those pieces of equipment to purchase. I did just want to make one other comment based on the comments about the property tax reform. I don't want to keep belaboring this, but for your benefit and Larry's benefit, the Iowa County Engineers Association and myself, of course, we do have some concerns about the property tax reform bill that passed last year. As you know, counties are able to collect, they may be able to collect less money due to this bill. Right now, currently, 2 counties are saying they cannot meet the local match that is required by the Code of Iowa. As you know, you are required to provide a certain amount of money to the roads every year based on the property taxes. There's a amount given in the code. If you cannot meet 75% of that, then you fall into a default where you are not able to use money out of your farm to market fund. Right now, 2 counties are saying that they will not be able to do that for the coming year. We believe the Iowa County Engineers Association believes that this will become, more counties will fall into that category as time goes on. I believe the bill sunsets in 2029. More counties are expecting to not be able to reach that minimum threshold adopted in the Code of Iowa. Right now in Black Hawk County, we do not foresee a problem with that, but we receive $1.3 million from the state of Iowa every year in farm to market funds, and we do want to be able to access that money. We need to be able to access that money. We spend approximately $2.5 million every year on road construction, so that is that's half of that money that we need to be able to access for our road resurfacings and our bridge reconstruction. So it is very important to the Iowa County Engineers Association and myself that we do be able to receive the full money that counties are able to give us in that local match on property tax reform, or with local property taxes, excuse me. So I just wanted to convey that message. I know I've talked to you about it before, but
I'm glad you did. Kind of appropriate timing. I was going to say, so noted, I guess, and then for our September meeting as well. But I said those are things that we need to keep on the.
We have been reaching out to legislatures down at the State House, and we will continue to do so.
Which 2 counties? I'm just curious if they're more urban or more rural.
One of them was Woodbury County, which is a rather large county, but they are just the way their budget is. They were very concerned that they will probably not be able to meet that minimum 75%.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other department heads or elected officials that would like to provide an update? Any on Zoom that would like to provide an update?
I'd provide a quick one.
Sure.
I just wanted to let you know, the auditors were here last week for their first round of work. They won't be back till October now, but I think it went pretty well. And yesterday I did go to Washburn and tour the Sioux Lagoon and look at all the potential projects with ACOM and Urban Services. So I can see, where the valves have shifted and why we need to replace them. And I can verify there is a fence around the lagoon, although there are some places that's in for repair. And it is a typical rural farm fence, maybe 4 feet tall, fairly loose, squares to get through. DNR prefers that to be more like a chain link 6-foot fence. So, and the signage that's out there is so faded, it's barely readable. So I think there are real reasons that some of those things are on the list of projects.
You have pictures in case we don't.
I have pictures, yes, and we rescued a turtle from one of the manholes, so I have a picture of that too. I saw lots of fun things.
All right.
Thanks for going out there.
Let's move on to, let's see. Item number 6, the approval of the minutes from the August 13th meeting.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Item number 7 is the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Leyland,
Yes.
Little,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Trocca.
Yes. Item number 8, contracts and agreements. We have a resolution that change order number 2 received from Peters Construction for the multi-department remodel project in the amount of $11,066.89 for additional data lines and power rework for 13 BAV boxes to be paid from the contingency funding, be approved, and for the chair to sign for same as recommended by Rory Giving, Facilities Director.
So moved.
Second. Rory?
Good morning, Board. Rory Giving, Facilities Director. This is, as it mentioned, change order number 2. It consists of 5 different change requests, 2 of which are deducts. 3 of them constitute the $11,066.89. One of the larger items within that is the power to the variable VAV boxes. And then also there is some additional data lines requested from our IT department for the treasurer's transaction counters. And we had a $30,000 contingency with change order 1 that was approved a week or 2 back. Along with this one, we have a balance in that contingency of $16,725.29.
Any more questions? Roll call vote, please.
Little.
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes.
Trocca.
Yes. Item number 9 under other business is a resolution that the disposal of the following county treasurer records be authorized: 1992 to 1994 apportioning checks, 2013 to 2014 cash receipts reports, July 2010 to June 2015 check stubs, 2007 to 2008 vendor payment list and check stubs, 2012 to 2014 cleared warrants and payroll registers, 2013 to 2014 detailed summary of summary warrant reports, fiscal year 11 investment files, 2012 to 2014 New World Journal summaries, 715 to 616 New World Journal summaries, 2012 to 2014 open warrant and payroll budget to actuals, fiscal year 03 to 04 payroll warrant fund folder, 2012 to 2014 private buyer EFT reports, and 2011-2013 trial balance.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? This is a resolution. Please answer as your name is called.
Paul.
Yes.
Leyland.
Yes.
Schwartz.
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
Trocca.
Yes. Item number 10, any reports or information from the board?
Reminder, I guess that Ted Garnett's gonna be here next week, and it's about, he's got 20 minutes, but 10 Q&A we did, so about a 30-minute session.
All right.
Around 10 o'clock, he thought would be ideal for him, if that worked. I said,
That works.
if we could take a recess or something, if we don't have a long meeting, but I was gonna confirm with Michelle too. We're gonna be expecting a presentation or an update next week.
We are, One City United, Dean
City.
Feltus is planning to attend to kind of talk about his performance using the opioid funds over the last year. And I believe Caitlin Emmerich from the health department and I would also like to have a work session about the opioid funds and restrictions on their use. She just attended a conference that's kind of built on some of the initial concepts that I learned a couple years ago. So we thought it would be a good time to update the board on that.
Good.
And we have a closed session that day too.
I believe I've heard something on it.
I think we had a request for a closed session. So
Yeah.
pretty full.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Tom or Chris?
No. I'm sorry. Nope.
Nope, I'm dead.
Get better. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. We are adjourned.